As you heard Mary Beth said, we've been going in, or just started last week, into a series on marriage. We do that a couple times a year because we as a church are committed to marriages, helping them be all that God wants them to be, and helping you in your marriage along that journey. And so we do that a couple times a year to encourage you, principles from God's Word to help you with that. And one of the things we like to do is to be able to hear from people who, on their journey, what God's doing in their lives, and the way that real people with real stories, that's what we're about here at Frontline. We don't sugarcoat life. It's real life, the way it's been lived and what God's doing there. And so this weekend we've had a marriage conference here. David and Michelle Hogue are the ones who hosted that conference and lead that for us. But I asked them if they would share their own story, a little bit about what God is doing in their marriage. And so David and Michelle, come and give us a little overview of what God's done and what that looks like. And we thank you for your sharing this morning and bless you for doing that with us.
Thank you, Pastor Gary. Like you said, my name's David Hogue. This is my amazing bride of almost 17 years, Michelle Hogue. And in case you were wondering about my shirt, I did not lose a bet. A few people asked about that. Now, although we know our story, for the sake of time, we wrote it down, and we'd like to share that with you. We'd like to say that marriage is easy, and the fairy tale stories are true. But truth be told, we've suffered and been scarred throughout the years because of sin. We have been through just about everything you can think of, from financial problems, idolatry, adultery, death of a mother, death of a grandmother. We've suffered from loss of what we can count 8 children due to tubal pregnancies. We also lost our twin boys at around 22 weeks that Michelle had to give delivery to. It wasn't until our 3rd deployment to Iraq that we would be awakened from what could happen, or from what could happen when you let your guard down. We were very involved in our church. We led Bible studies, and we were gearing up for what God would have us do next when I was notified of deployment. We had a great group of people who came from all walks of life. I left Iraq ready to help those in need, to be a light in the dark places that needed to be. I remember one day talking with a woman who seemed to be down on her luck. Come to find out, she was having problems with her marriage back home. Being excited that I could maybe help, I was blinded to see she was a wolf in sheep's clothing. As conversations went on, we continued to email, Skype one another. We began talking, and the conversations went away from her problems into a relationship with one another. The messages got more explicit as time went on, to the point that it was a full-blown affair that I couldn't even see. Satan had me trapped, and I didn't even know it. I finally redeployed back home with Michelle, and that's when Satan stepped back to watch what he created.
One day, we were hanging out on vacation after David returned. We were at his brother's house when I was looking through his cell phone. I found some hurtful and unbelievable things. I saw emails, Skypes, messages, Facebook that were exchanged between David and another woman. It broke my heart and made me sick to my stomach. I didn't know what to do, so I ran to David's mom's. I told her everything. Of course, David found out why I was so upset. I couldn't believe this was happening. I thought my husband was a perfect man and would never do anything like this. Now I saw him as just another sinner like me and everyone else. I couldn't believe it. We came back home to North Carolina and I just couldn't take it. I was so depressed, I couldn't trust David anymore. I even made him call this girl in front of me to break it off. I ended up drinking more and more. I didn't even care about anything, myself or him. So one time I told him I wanted a divorce. I threw my ring at him. Once I called him about leaving him, he hurried up right away from work.
We were at the threshold of being separated and a divorce. I didn't know what to do, so I called our good friends to come help talk to us. I don't know what I was thinking. Thought maybe they had some magical words that would just make everything okay. They had no idea what was going on because we were so good at just hiding it from everybody from church and family. This news was going to shock them. My walls came crashing down. This pedestal that Michelle talked about of me putting on a facade of being so perfect was about to be ripped apart. Our friends basically said, if you don't put Jesus in the middle of your marriage like you know you're supposed to, you can start thinking about who gets the car, who gets the dog, and who gets the TV. Now, I was shocked, and wanting to make things work, Michelle was thinking about what dog she wanted, if she wanted the TV, or what car she wanted. Then the tender words came from Michelle's mouth that she was willing to work it out, and gave me back her ring.
There happened to be a 6-week study at church called Deployment Ready. We started going. The first night, I felt sick to my stomach and almost walked out. I hated taking this study. I didn't want to stay anymore, but for some reason, I did finish the study. One night, David admitted and confessed to everyone there. I was surprised he said it out loud. The storm was not an overnight fix for us, or weeks or months. It took about 2.5 years. It did end up healing and getting better, as we're here today. During the storm we were going through, we noticed that many doors were opening for our marriage to work out. There were Bible studies. Every time we turn on the TV, there were things about marriage. And I was thinking, I think God's trying to tell us something.
As Michelle said, this was not an overnight fix. In fact, it seemed like things were getting worse before they were going to get better. I tried to fix what I messed up so badly. I realized my problem, or our problem, was not that it was because we were not including God in our situation. I became a doormat and allowed Michelle to do whatever she wanted and gave her whatever she wanted because I thought, who was I to lead her or try to tell her what was right or wrong? God got a hold of me and I started diving back into his word again and praying without ceasing. I remember hearing God tell me that I needed to stop trying so hard to fix my marriage with my own strength and trust in him. He told me to have faith that he would heal our marriage if I just gave all to him, and if Michelle decided to leave me, God would still be with me. My relationship with Jesus was amazing, but I still had a hurting wife. She was not growing closer to God and was not by my side to grow together, understandably so. I remember one day specifically, Michelle was sitting in our closet, and I was reading the Bible on the floor next to my bed. I heard her crying and went to talk to her. She told me she felt so alone. She lost her best friend. She lost her drinking buddy, referring to me. I told her God was changing me, and I couldn't help that. Michelle did not want to follow me as a leader in our house. I kept praying, and God reminded me to have faith and forgiveness, and that one day Michelle would follow me. It was awesome to see small changes throughout the weeks in Michelle as the changes in me were happening as well. She began to follow me and follow my lead. God's grace is so awesome, but we were still far from being healed. We heard of a retreat, a marriage conference for family life called Weekend to Remember and the Art of Marriage. We went to a conference, and one of the projects called us to write a love letter to each other. Later that day, we decided instead of just exchanging these letters like we did in high school, we decided to go to dinner, I believe it was Joe's Crab Shack, and read them to each other. That made us vulnerable, and instead of just reading it, got to hear each other's voice. We decided after we read our letters that we couldn't bring up the past no longer, and decided from that day forward, we listed everything we've done wrong to each other and forgave each other from every sin from that day forward.
The conference helped us because it opened, especially my eyes, on God and how important David is for me. He is a gift from God, not my enemy. No matter how bad the situation is that we go throughout our marriage, we will work it out. There's no taking the easy button and turn your cheek the other way. The more we communicate, the more we get closer to each other and to God.
Here Michelle and I are 6 years later. We've been blessed with a beautiful daughter since then that all medical doctors said was impossible. All odds were against us, but we're here to tell you that nothing, let me say that again, nothing is impossible with God in your life. We are not saying that our marriage is perfect, because none are. We continue to work at it because that's what it takes. I would summarize what we've learned from God about our marriage like this. Every morning we need to wake up and be prepared to fight for our marriage. I will conclude with this question that God had asked us. How do you love an imperfect person perfectly? You must have full faith, forgiveness, and love. That's what our marriage is about. Realize that your spouse is a sinner and is not perfect. We must be ready to forgive them before they even mess up, and do so lovingly. We hope by listening to our story has helped some of you. We know that a lot of you are going or has gone through the same situation as we have. But remember, it's not over, and when the storm settles, God makes you stronger if you allow him to help you through it. Thank you.
Thank you, Dad. Wow, thanks, David and Michelle. I appreciate your story, appreciate your openness and honesty. That's real life. That's what we get ourselves into sometime. We've called this series Marriage, Even More Than You Hoped For. And their story is one of those, even more than they hoped for, more than what we deserve. That's what God does for us. I love real stories from real people about real marriages. That's part of who we are at Frontline. We tell life like it is. We talk about one of our values is being real, the way life is, and seeing what God does with our lives. So I appreciate their story. You know, when you hear somebody you know, maybe you sat next to a church last week, or you work with, or they live in the same village, and you hear them tell their story, I hope it brings hope to you. And maybe you wonder, can God do that in our marriage? Can God do that in my life? Well, I want you to know, yes, he can. That's the kind of God we have. He does immeasurably more than we could even ask or imagine. And I admit that when we do a series like this on marriage, what we're calling now Even More Than You Hope For, obviously I normally talk to married couples. Duh, that's why it's a series on marriage. And we do that, and we graciously tell those of you who are single, well, feel free, you can listen in. There'll be some things here that you'll pick up that'll be helpful to you, maybe in your relationships now, but certainly down the road. And you can maybe help your friends with some of these principles as we talk to married couples. And because we have a lot of singles here at Frontline who are very polite, you graciously listen in. You do that and you pick that up. And I know secretly you're thinking, how much longer is this series going on? And when do we get back to some things that relate to our lives a little bit more directly? That's it. You pick up an idea or two, and you quietly wait for us to move on. But today, in this second session of our marriage series, I want to flip that script. And by that, what I mean is I want to talk to those of you who are single today, and I'm going to ask the marrieds to listen in. It's your turn to listen in. Singles, from whether you're maybe in high school, you're up through whatever age single. We have singles in every stage of life. And so singles, this one's for you. I'm going to share some thoughts with you today that I hope will be encouraging and helpful to you. And one of the reasons I do that was because several reasons. We have a lot of singles here at Frontline. We often talk about married life from the context of marriage, but it also is a perspective from singles that's helpful. And so as I talk about that today, one of the things that motivates me to do that is I'll be sitting sometimes with a couple, maybe in marriage counseling, or they're telling me their story. And as they're telling me about their broken road and how they got to where they are and the things that are going on in their lives, I don't usually say it out loud, but I often think this. I think, didn't somebody tell you these problems would be coming? Didn't somebody warn you about what you were sowing, what you were putting together in your single life, and that you'd find that in marriage? Didn't somebody tell you how you could avoid all this pain that you're experiencing and trying to find your way out of? And in the course of those conversations, oftentimes people will come back and in certain ways will say, no one ever told us. We never knew those things. And so I want to change that. That's why I want to talk to singles today. And I've done a lot of listening and reading and about single life. I was single well into my 20s, and I want to share some thoughts that I've had. I've picked up thoughts from other pastors who've talked about single living. One of those has been very helpful to me, a pastor in Georgia, the name of Andy Stanley. I'm going to share some things that he did at the end of my message. But I want to tell you, those of you who are single, some of the things that will change the equation in your life, that will change and affect your marriage if God has that for you. And this talk on singleness is for all of you, as I said. We have a lot of different kinds of singles here. We have a ministry that God's really blessed here. It's called 20-somethings, and it's for 20-somethings. Singles come and they find other singles and be a part of that. Some couples in there. So we have some 20-something singles here, a lot at Frontline. And you, I know, have a vision of marriage, kind of wedding bells in your ears and you stars in your eyes. You think, man, I can hardly wait to be at the wedding altar someday, and I want to have a great marriage. And so you think of marriage and there's those beautiful dreams. You have a great checklist that you go through every time you meet another single, and you're kind of scoping it out and seeing, is this somebody's a possibility? And then we have singles that are in their 30s. And the clock is running a little bit more maybe for you in your 30s. And you also have a checklist, just a little shorter checklist now. And you don't want to be too picky. And so you're kind of watching as well. But our singles go on up. We have singles in their 40s and 50s. And by that stage, maybe you've thrown away the checklist and all you're doing is checking for a pulse and say, okay, living, breathing, yeah, man, let's talk. Maybe that's where you are. I'm not sure. We have formerly marrieds. Marriage just said, man, been there, done that. I just hope I don't repeat the cycle the next time of what I experienced this time. We have about to be married singles. I love to sit down with them. They're the ones who are heading maybe just a few weeks or months away to being at the wedding altar. They do some premarital talk and helping them prepare for their wedding. Every other kind of single, maybe those who have never thought about marriage, written that off, said, nope, not in my list. Maybe those who secretly have sworn off but are hoping that still maybe there's something there. And so, singles, for you. Marrieds, will you do us a favor and you can listen in today? Listen in and pick up some principles that may be helpful to you. If you have teenage kids, helpful to you with, talk to them. You have singles you work with, singles are in your family, friends, that you can listen in and help them as well. So I've wrestled with this. I want to say everything I can say to singles. I get one shot at it, 30 minutes. How do I do that? I'd like to take everything that Suzanne and I poured into we have two sons, into our sons, and they were single into their 20s and late. And everything we poured into them in 25 years, I'd like to give you in 30 minutes. So I know that's not going to happen. That just isn't going to be in the cards today. So I thought, if I could tell you who are single, 3 things, what would those 3 be? So I kind of boiled this down to 3 truths I'd like to give you who are single about life. I hope will be truths that will help you in terms of marriage, if God has that for you down the road in your life. And so since the clock is running, time is short, let's get started. The first truth I want to tell you who are single about life and about marriage is that your present will show up in your future. Simple truth, your present will show up in your future. What I mean by that is something you often hear on the wedding day is that this is a new life for you, a new beginning. That's not exactly true. Because you come to the wedding day, and that's one of the crazy myths. I call it kind of the monopoly myth, with this idea that you come to your wedding day and you've been living with this, you've had a get out of free jail card. And so you're going to whip out the get out of free jail card on your wedding day. And you're going to say, you know, when I was single, I sowed my wild oats. I had some pretty fun times, a little loose living, some wild times. But now that I'm getting married, I'll take my get out of jail card and I'm going to now play by the rules. I'm going to experience all the great things in marriage I want and been hoping for, even though I've been playing by other rules as I'm single. So you take that out, and I want to tell you that myth about the monopoly get out of jail free card, living however you want in single and then experiencing and having what you desire in marriage isn't true. It's not going to happen. Your present will show up in your future. How do I know that? Well, not because I'm so smart, but because God's so wise. He says in the Bible, in the book of Galatians, one of the New Testament books, listen to these words about sowing and reaping. In Galatians 6, verse 7, he says, don't be misled. You cannot mock the justice of God. You will always harvest what you plant. Those who live only to satisfy their own sinful nature will harvest decay and death from that sinful nature. But those who live to please the Spirit will harvest everlasting life from the Spirit. So let's not get tired of doing what is good. At just the right time, we will reap a harvest of blessing if we don't give up. In that context of what we're talking about today, single life and marriage on the horizon, what that simply means is that your past shows up in your present, and your present shows up in your future. It's a law of nature. God says that's the way it works. It's what sowing and reaping is all about. What you sow in your single years, mark it, he says, you will reap in your married years. That doesn't mean God's locked in and can't change and heal and fix that stuff, but it's a painful road to take, depending on how you've sown in your single years. And I would say across this auditorium, you heard the Hogue, David, and Michelle, their story. The married couples, countless numbers, could tell that story. I wish somebody had told me that my present will meet me in my future. I would have done something different. When I was our boys were young, I coached a basketball league. I love doing that coaching. And one of the things I learned in coaching to develop a good team is that, and I use this as a philosophy, I told them, we practice like we play. In other words, during the week of practicing, we practice just like we're going to be in the game. We're not sloppy during the week and expect to be sharp on game day. It doesn't work that way. And so we would practice like we wanted to play on the weekend at the game time. And I remember one season we played, we knew was the best team in our division, and they slaughtered. First game, they slaughtered us. But we worked at that philosophy. I said, we're going to practice like we want to play. And over the season, the team continued to get better and better and better. And at the last game of the season, we played that same best team again. And at the end of the game, we came within one shot of winning that game. And after the game, it was so close, that coach came and said, wow, you guys have made huge strides. How'd you do it? I said, well, because we learned to practice like we play. And so that affects us in our single life and married, because our present will show up in our future. So you begin now in the single years to develop the patterns, the values that you want to experience then, if and when you get married. And so, for example, if you want good communication in your marriage someday with your spouse, you learn how to communicate now. You learn how to be in touch with your feelings, your emotions, how to share those appropriately, how to engage, how to listen, how to care, how to reflect, how to connect in your heart at a deep level of communication. If you want faithfulness in your marriage, you practice that now. You practice that in your friendships. You become a faithful friend. If you want healthy intimacy, fulfilling intimacy in your marriage, you practice that as a single. You practice that in not giving yourself away sexually to everyone you date, or often in multiple partners. You practice that in your single. You sow the virtues today that you want to reap in your marriage in the future. Because the lifestyle that you sow now, you will experience when you're married. That's where you'll start. It's not a round, fresh new day. No, it's a continuation of the past and the present. What you're doing now in your single years, you'll experience in your married years. So that's the first truth I'd like to tell those of you who are single at whatever age. Remember, your present will show up in your future. The second truth that I'd like you to know grows out of that one, and it is this: become the person now that you want to be then. If the first one is true, this is the implication of that. Become the person now that you want to be then in marriage. This truth is related to a second myth that people often believe about marriage. We have the monopoly myth, but we also have the fairy tale myth. It goes like this: if I just find the right person and marry that person, everything will be all right. It's more about finding the right person than being the right person. But that's not true. It's a myth. Now, I don't fault you if you believe that myth and that's how you're living. Many people do, because that's what we've been taught. We were taught that myth from childhood. Every childhood story, every fairy tale that was told to us probably had something like that in it. And they ended up somewhat like this: if you just find your Prince Charming, your beautiful princess, he or she will make everything all right. Will take care of everything. It's not how you are, regardless of what you're like. Find Prince Charming, the beautiful princess, and it'll be great. It's not true. I remember a young woman who told me her story. She said she had been, she didn't grow up in a church. She wasn't a church girl, as she called it. But she'd been invited to go to a retreat, a church retreat, a singles retreat. She said, well, I'm not a church girl. I don't want to do that church thing. And her friends convinced her, no, come, it's a great time. We have just a super time. You'll see a different side of things. And she continued to encourage her. She said, well, there are a lot of guys there. You're going to like meeting some of these guys, some sharp ones. And so reluctantly she went on this retreat. And she met a lot of cool guys. She met one particular guy that caught her eye, her attention. She thought, wow, this could be it. He had a cool factor of 10, had a great career. He was a leader in the singles group. He led a short-term mission trip to Haiti. He was doing all kinds of great things. And she thought, this is a guy I need to hang around with. In fact, I want to date him. And she did all kinds of things to set up a date. Invited friends to do that, talked to him. She even came to church now just to see him, spend time with him. And he was polite and gracious to her. Just his wow factor just continued to go up in her head, but she couldn't get to first base with the guy. She couldn't get a date for anything. And she was frustrated with that, and then she told her mom about that, her mother being a wise and gracious soul, leveled with her. She said, honey, I hate to tell you this, but a guy like that isn't looking for a girl like you. Ouch. Thanks, Mom. That's true. The mom was basically saying, you're from two different molds. You've been molded this way, and he's being molded this way, and those molds don't fit very well together. That's what the Bible talks about. It reminds us of that. That's why it says and tells us this second truth that prepare now for the person you want to be then. The Bible says this in Romans chapter 12 and verse 2. It says, don't copy the ways and the customs of this world. Don't bring that mold into your life, but let God transform you into a new person by changing the way you think. And then you will learn to know God's will for you, which is good and pleasing and perfect. You see, if you spend your single years letting the world form you into its mold, its values, its behaviors, its practices, then you'll find that someday when you meet a guy or the gal of your dreams who's being transformed by God's mold, God's doing something amazing in their life, and you're saying, I want to find that Prince Charming. I want that beautiful princess. You'll discover he or she won't be all that interested in you because they're two different molds. One's been molded by God, one's been molded by the world, and those don't tend to fit very well, at least not easily. And so here's the question that every single should ask and consider before they're married, as they're moving in that direction. As you consider about becoming the person now that you want to be then, you should ask yourself this question: am I becoming the person whom the person I'm looking for is looking for? Am I becoming the person that I want? Am I becoming the person they're looking for? You see, it's as important as looking for the right person is becoming the right person. So apply that. Do you want, in your marriage, do you want your wife, if you get married someday, to respect you? Then, are you becoming a respectable person now? Are you learning how to respect women so that your wife will respect you? Or do you treat them as objects? Do you treat them as things to be used, and enjoyed, and thrown away, commodities? Do you want a husband who will be faithful to you? Then are you becoming a faithful person now in your friendships, relationships? Do you want a spouse who will put your interests on par with theirs? Rather than it's all about them, it's about you together. Then are you cultivating that now? showing interest with others, learning how to be that kind of person now that you want to be then? The point is, the checklist that we have as singles, you let that checklist become a checklist for your own life. That's the kind of person I want to be. The pattern for the kind of person I want God to be transforming me into. The mold I want God to be using to make me the person that the person I'm looking for is looking for. And that brings us to a third truth that I'd like to tell every single, whether you're a follower of Jesus or you're not yet a follower of Jesus. These are principles that you can bring into your life and into your relationships that will make a difference, and make a difference for the rest of your life in that relationship. And that third truth is that you need to write the story of your marriage while you're still single. That's when you begin to write the story of your marriage, not on the wedding day at the altar. You start writing the story of your marriage while you're single. Someday, when you meet that person that you might marry, you'll have an opportunity to tell them your story. And you'll tell them the story. They want to know it. You'll tell them the good, the fun stuff, and you'll tell them the not so easy and not so good and beautiful things. So the truth is, determine today, what story do you want to tell to that special person that God brings to your life, if he does so? What story do you want to tell to your mate on your wedding day and early in your marriage? Begin to write that story now. Don't wait until you're married, because the story you're living today will become the story with which you enter marriage. And then it will continue to be written into your marriage. Does that mean if you've had a bad story to this date, God's stuck with that story? No, he can redeem it. He can bring something out of it. It takes a lot of work. It's painful. It's difficult, as David and Michelle shared. So save yourself a lot of headaches, heartaches, and pain, and brokenness. And write the story of your marriage while you're still single. And I know of no better script to follow as you write that story than another one that we find in the New Testament. We find this in a chapter that the Bible is called the great love chapter, 1 Corinthians chapter 13, a description of what love is like. Listen to these words. Love is patient and kind. Love is not jealous or boastful or proud or rude. It does not demand its own way. It's not irritable, and it keeps no record of being wronged. It does not rejoice about injustice, but rejoices whenever the truth wins out. Love never fails, never gives up, never loses faith, is always hopeful, and endures through every circumstance. It's a pretty good script for life. It's what love is. But I encourage you, if you want to write the story of your marriage while you're still single, take that script. And instead of the word love, in place of it, put your name. And so you read it like this. You say, Gary is patient and kind. Gary is not jealous or boastful or proud or rude. You put your name in there and you say, that's the story I want to write of my life while I'm single. I want those virtues to be true of me, and I want God to continue to refine them and develop them. And so that I can bring that kind of story into my marriage someday. That's the story I'll be telling that mate that God brings to me if he does so. You put your name in there and you let those qualities be the things that God's writing into your life so that he can write those into your marriage from the first day on. So there you have it. 3 truths that I want to tell every single. Everyone and couples you've been able to listen in. I hope it's encouraging to you too. Because I want you as singles, I want you to have the marriage of your dreams. Now, actually better than that, I want you to have more than your dreams. Because that's the kind of God we have. The Bible says we have a God who is able to do immeasurably more than all you could ask or think. God's going to want to bring a marriage relationship to you that's so far beyond what you could have hoped for and dreamed. That's what God has for you. That's my desire for you as well. And so if you're on track with those 3 truths, I want to cheer you on. Keep it up. Way to go. Don't get sidetracked. Don't get discouraged. Don't lose patience. God may be slow, But God's never late. God knows what he's doing. Let him write that in your life. Let him shape them and mold you. And I know there'll be times when people will say, get into the 21st century. And that's not how you live nowadays. That's old-fashioned. These are new values, new days. Stay with it. I had a couple tell me recently, did some premarital conversation with them. They got married a couple weeks ago. And they said they had made the commitment in their relationship to honor God, to be pure. They didn't live together. They weren't sleeping together. They said, no, we want to honor God. We want to do it God's way. And they got kidded and poked fun at it at work and their friends. But she said one time, she told me so many of the girls secretly have come to her and said, I wish I could do that. I wish that was a story that my boyfriend and I were living. Man, but he'd never go for that. Stay with it, because it's right. It's what God would have, and we'll write a beautiful marriage story for you. So I cheer you. Continue on. But what do you do if that hasn't been your story? You say, well, man, my life isn't writing that story. Is it too late? Is it broken beyond being fixed? Do you despair? Do you give up? Do you say, well, I guess it's for somebody else who hasn't messed it up as much as I have? Tell you, no. Start today. Today can be the new story. Just turn the page and say, I'm going to write a new chapter starting today that will be the story of my marriage. I want to change that. How do you do that? Well, remember, God heals the broken road we're on. We're all on a broken road. Every one of us, me too. God heals those things. He brings us, he says, come as you are. Here's 3 steps that'll help you, I think, get back on the road that God wants you to be on and heal some of that brokenness. The first one is come clean before God. Just say, God, you know it anyway. I'm just going to tell you what my life is like, how I've been doing this. I need your forgiveness. I need to experience that. I need to come clean before you. I need a fresh start. The Bible calls that confession. Turning and saying, I'm going to do something different. I'm going to agree with God. That wasn't right, and I'm going to write a new story. And maybe you're not a follower of Jesus, and you said, boy, I need that in my life. I need a fresh start in every area of life, not just in my relationships. I need a fresh start in my heart. Bring that to God. He can take care of that too. He'll change more than your dating patterns. He'll change your heart. He'll change your future. He'll change your eternity. As you open your life and say, Jesus, that's what I need. I need you in my life to come and forgive me of my sins. That's why you died on the cross, and to be my Savior. So come clean before God. Second step is to write a letter to God. I mean a literal, physical, handwritten letter with your intentions. And say, God, I want to make some changes by the power of you in me. I want a fresh start. I want a new story, new chapter. I'm going to do it your way. And write that down. Come back to it often. Save it. Put it out somewhere where you'll see it. You can read it. And you can say, that's right, I made that commitment. Even when it gets hard, I remember I made that commitment to God. And then the third step is to take the 1-year challenge. The 1-year challenge is something I came across from Andy Stanley some time ago. He came up with it, I believe, somewhere. He's a pastor in Georgia. What you do with your 1-year challenge is you take out your calendar and you flip forward to 1 year from today, to May 15th, 2017. And you write in that date, finish line. Finish line that's the end of the 1-year challenge. And for 1 year, you say, God, I'm going to do something different. I'm going to let you do something different in my life, and I'm going to start a new pattern. For 1 year, no dating, no romantic relationships, no sex. God, I'm going to change some things in my life. I'm going to change some patterns of how I relate to people. I'm going to quit putting my interests above everybody else's. I'm going to write the 1 Corinthians 13 letter with my name in it. You take the 1-year challenge and all that means. But particularly in the area of your own purity. If you're living together with someone, you say, God, part of my 1-year challenge, I'm going to stop that as soon as possible, as I possibly can. Make a decision to change that. And then you let God use this year as a rebuilding year for your life, for your future, for your marriage. And say, God, I'm serious about that. I want to become the person the person I'm looking for is looking for. I want you to change the mold that I'm being built around, that's being built around me. And then that 1-year challenge, be prepared. Because what will happen in about 3 months, maybe 3 weeks, you're going to meet the man or woman of your dreams. And you're going to say, oh, I knew this would happen. This is so great. And you're going to finish your 1-year challenge early. You're going to want to. You're going to say, wow, I didn't even take a year. God is so good. Don't do it. Because God knows the 1-year challenge. And you simply tell that person, I heard you'd be coming around. Here's my number. Call me in a year. Because I made a promise to God. And that promise is more important than any promise I can make to you or to anybody else. That God's going to rebuild some things in my life in 1 year. And then when you're finished, that 1-year challenge, those 3 steps, you'll be ready to meet the person of your dreams. More so than you've ever dreamed for, because that's the kind of God we have. I want to share a letter with you that was written by a gal who took that 1-year challenge. And her story is a powerful story of what God did with that. Words will be here on the screen in just a moment. But I want you to hear that letter as though this is not the person who wrote it, but she's going to read it for us. The 1-year challenge of what God can do in your life as well. And then after you hear that read, I'm going to pray. And then the band is going to sing a song that I hope is your song of hope. It's God's invitation to you. Come as you are. You don't have to wait 3 weeks or 3 months to say, well, man, I got to clean some stuff up in my life so I can do those things now. God says, come as you are. I can take your broken road. I can mend it. I can direct it. I can change it. Just come as you are. So I hope these challenges will be helpful to you. And listen to this letter, and then I'll pray.
Dear Pastor, after listening to you give the 1-year challenge, I just couldn't ignore God pressing it on my heart that I needed to take that challenge. Like many, I grew up in a broken home, and at the age of 5, my mother moved us 600 miles away from my father. When I was 12 years old, I got the talk from my mother, and while I do recall her encouraging me to wait until I found someone I loved, there was no encouragement to save sex until marriage. All I knew about sex was what my friends were doing, and this knowledge took me into my high school years with a constant state of numbness, giving myself away to every boyfriend I had. During my first year of college, I began surrounding myself with different people. My new friends and I started attending a great church, and it became routine for me to listen to messages online. One night, I found myself sitting in my dorm room listening to the Twisted Category of One talk. I wasn't prepared for what I was about to hear. I can remember everything about that night. It was a moment of truth in my life and the largest milestone to this day. I was in tears, writing notes like a madman. I was slapped in the face with the truth about sex, and the shallowness of my relationship with God was revealed. I finally realized the connection between my experience with sex and my life of numbness. My intimacy factor was gone. Everything became real when you gave the 1-year challenge. I had no idea how I was going to do that, but I printed out my notes, grabbed a pen, and wrote November 6, 2012. No dating for me for 1 year. No more sex until married. And then I signed it. The very next day, I wrote in my journal, I made it 1 day, God. It was the most challenging thing I have ever been faced with. There were so many guys floating around in my life. I had to cancel my text messaging, and slowly I began to feel sensitivity to my sin. Just 1 month after stepping up to the plate with God, I already began to feel him work in my heart. A few months later, an old high school friend contacted me through Facebook. He was currently working as a youth minister and noticed my online bio that I had changed. He asked to hear my story, and I told him about my November 6th commitment. He became someone who spoke truth into what God was showing me and helped me with the messes I was still caught up in. With complete purity and altruism in his heart, he led me closer to God. When the next November 6th rolled around, he asked to take me on a date. I went, but after our date, I told him I just wanted to be friends. 4 months passed, as well as a few dates with other guys, and we ran into each other again. I was so excited to see him. I had thought a lot about the lack of substance in the previous dates I had been on. We continued to talk, and I slowly saw it all come together. I saw the beauty of what God wanted to do through our lives. He was a virgin and had made the commitment when he was young to stay pure until marriage. I felt so unworthy of that. He had a lifestyle I desired but didn't feel deserving of, and yet he wanted to bring me with him. I saw Jesus in him. I was precious to him. It was April 2014, a year and 5 months after my 1-year challenge, that I saw God's plan unfolding, and we began dating. Our love story continued on for a little over a year, and in July 2014, he asked me to marry him. Our relationship is founded on friendship and faith, and I felt God's confirmation. We set our marriage date exactly 3 years after God changed my life through the 1-year challenge, Saturday, November 6th, 2014. We just celebrated 6 months of marriage, and I am in tears thinking of what we have been through. If it wasn't for the year thing and all God changed in my heart, not only would I be incapable of loving him the way he deserves to be loved, I probably would not have him at all. I'm so thankful to God for calling me into a bigger story than the one I was writing for myself at the time. So thanks for listening to my story and for challenging me to do better. Your friend.
God, we want to just say thank you. Thanks for calling us to do better. Thanks for giving us the opportunity to do better, to write a different story in our lives. Lord, that's a challenge and an opportunity for all of us, singles and couples, never married, formerly married, soon to be married, doesn't matter. Thanks that we can do that in fresh ways as you bring healing and hope to our lives. God, I pray across this room today that that would be the truth that sinks in, that you are a God who's gracious. You are a God who makes the broken road straight again. You heal it. And then you invite us to come as you are. Come as we are, and we don't have to fix things in our life. We just bring it all to you. Baggage and all, wounds and brokenness. And you begin to make something good, wholesome, beautiful out of it, beyond what we could have even asked or imagined. We thank you for that hope, that promise, that invitation that we can come as we are. In your name we pray. Amen.
Come out of sadness from wherever you've been. Come broken-hearted, let healing begin. Come find your mercy, oh sinner, come kneel. Earth has no sorrow that heaven can't heal. Earth has no sorrow that heaven can't heal. So lay down your burdens, lay down your shame. All who are broken, lift up your face. Oh, wanderer, come home. You're not too far. So lay down your hurt, lay down your heart. Come as you are. There's hope for the hopeless and all those who've strayed. Come sit at the table, come taste the grace. There's rest for the weary, rest that endures. Earth has no sorrow, heaven can't cure. So lay
Let's stand together as we pray. God, thank you. That's an invitation for all of us to bring it to you, the stuff that we maybe showed up with this morning. Gives us hope that we don't have to leave with that stuff. We can leave it here. Thank you for that hope and that invitation. In your name we pray, amen. Hey, thanks for being here today. I want you to know maybe God's prompted you to say, I want to explore that something we've talked about today. Our prayer team will be up here at the close of the service. Dave and Michelle are here. If you want to just come and ask somebody to pray for you, they'll be happy to do that. You don't have to share your whole story. You can just say, here's a little bit of it. Pray for me. They'll be here. The cafe's open. Hang out if you can. We'd love to meet you. Thanks for being here today. God bless you. Hope to see you next Sunday.